It's time now for French Connections, our weekly look at the intricacies of life here in France. This week we're going to take a step back from the news and turn our attention inward toward thought and the meaning of life with Florence Villeneuve. Hi, Flo. So many people associate France with passionate intellectual debate. You just have to go to a French dinner party to understand what that's all about. Philosophy, literature are major elements of French culture exported all over the world, and it's definitely something people here in France are proud of.
They sure are, and nerd alert, because today we are going to focus on France's contribution to knowledge and ideas. Now, if the French philosopher famously said, "I think, therefore I am," it could be said of the French, "We think, therefore we are." And over the years, France has truly produced a wide array of world-leading thinkers, front and center in the advancement of dazzling theories about all sorts of things, knowledge, liberty, justice, the human condition, and of course, the meaning of life. Now, some French thinkers have almost sacred status here in France. You can see some of them here, the Enlightenment philosophers Voltaire and Rousseau, Victor Hugo and Émile Zola. And what you see here is Le Panthéon. It's the final resting place of French national heroes, and a lot of massive French thinkers are buried here.
Now, one of the most characteristic inventions of modern French culture is this notion of the intellectual. It's a word that's often thrown around, but what technically is an intellectual?
Well, it's a word that was invented by the French, and it's our word du jour. Well, actually not intellectual, but it's a kind of slang word, intello. So what is an intellectuel or an intello? Well, it's not just an expert in a field, say literature, philosophy, or art. It's someone who also speaks in universal terms, providing moral guidance about general society and political issues. So essentially, it's someone who uses their intelligence for the greater good. And if that's not clear, well, listen to an intellectuel try and spell it out for you.
Je crois qu'un intellectuel, c'est un écrivain ou un artiste qui interrompt régulièrement ou périodiquement son travail d'écrivain, le face-à-face avec son œuvre, pour intervenir dans la cité et pour s'engager.
Now, one question I still have after researching this show is who gets to label who an intellectual? And as far as I can tell, there are a lot of self-appointed intellectuels out there, often white men, it must be said, who have made a career about it.
Now, France's theoretical activity really came to a head in the decades after World War II.
That's right. That's French intellectuals would hold court in smoky cafes like the Café de Flore and the de Magot, debating for hours. And this period saw the development of all sorts of isms that France is really famous for: rationalism, structuralism, positivism, and existentialism. And the ultimate symbol of left-bank intellectuals really was the existential philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre. He really took the role of the public intellectual to its highest prominence. You can see him here. He brought a certain glamour to the French intellectual, as did his intellectual and life partner, the feminist Simone de Beauvoir. She was famous for her bold advocacy of women's emancipation.
Par conséquent, je crois que c'est une option qu'il faut proposer à toutes les femmes. Je ne dis pas de ne pas se marier, de ne pas avoir d'enfants, mais de réserver toujours une certaine zone de liberté, de solitude, que ce soit pour rêver, pour lire, pour écouter de la musique, pour penser, pour n'importe quoi, mais enfin, une zone de solitude et de liberté.
Well, today, this idea of French intellectualism is really bound up with France's national sense of cultural excellence. But when you think about French intellectuals, the names that actually pop up are really mostly from the past.
They sure are, because if you ask someone to name a French intellectual, chances are they're going to name someone who's dead. Camus, Sartre, Foucault, de Beauvoir, Bourdieu, Derrida. And it really begs the question, where are the intellectuals today? Now, in many ways, times have changed. There is, these days you have less of a towering public intellectual, and there's more of a mosaic of people, historians, economists, novelists that are contributing to a conversation that's more fragmented, essentially. But some go even further and say that French philosophy just has less to offer than it does before. And I found a really interesting article I recommend by the historian Sudhir Hazari Singh, where he explains that, French thought, which used to be so inspiring around the world, is in the doldrums. And to quote part of the article, it's very long, but just to quote one part, it says, the dominant characteristic of contemporary French intellectuals is essentially they're superficial, derivative, and pessimistic. And it's true that if you look at current intellectuals like Bernard-Henri Lévy that we heard at the beginning, Michel Onfray, Alain Finkielkraut, they're pretty pessimistic. In fact, they're often labeled as polémistes, people who like to essentially cause arguments. And it's true that, these days, the word intellectuel can have a negative connotation in France, describing someone who's pedantic, pretentious, conceited, in an ivory tower, and a little disconnected with the real world.
Okay, so if the figure of the intellectual has arguably changed, disappeared from the public debate today, the French do continue to value things like sharpness of mind and intellect and debate, and that's actually something French kids learn in school.
That's right. The study of philosophy has been mandatory for all students in French high schools since the 1800s, and this is a tradition that's inherited from the philosophers of the Enlightenment. And the curriculum really is aimed at producing enlightened citizens who are capable of intelligent criticism and critical thinking. And the way that French students learn philosophy is very unique. It's different from other European countries where people will learn about the history of thought. In France, they're taught to think and debate.
Je trouve que ça aide beaucoup à mûrir à notre âge et que ça sert beaucoup pour les années à venir.
Est-ce que ça te donne envie de faire de la philosophie?
Oui. Oui.
C'est assez abstrait en fait.
Now, each year, the media relays the philosophy questions on the baccalaureate, prompting national debates. And I chose a little selection for you of previous exam questions. Is it one's responsibility to find happiness? Is work a necessity? And does death give meaning to life? You have 4 hours. Good luck.
It's such a lot to think about, Flo. Thank you so much for that. Don't forget, if you want to get a closer look at this French Connections, check it out on our website. That address is france24.com.